DEF CON 23 and a whole lot of awesome today on Hack 5. This episode of Hack 5 is brought to you by Domain.com.
Hello, welcome to Hack 5. My name is Darren Kitchen.
I'm Shannon Morse, and this is Kirby.
That's Kirby Kitchen. She says hello. It's your weekly dose of Technolust.
She's like, bye.
Yeah, she's like, okay, I've made my appearance.
So we just went to DEF CON 23 out in Las Vegas. See, I'm brain dead.
We are so broken.
So broken. No, I came back with a cold.
I came back with a what just happened.
Yeah, what just happened? So we have a couple of things on our table. First, I wanted to say happy birthday to Jeff. I hear it's your birthday, so happy birthday, dude. Thank you for watching the show. And second off, I also wanted to say somebody finally completed the challenge coin.
Oh, yes. I can't wait. You know what?
So cool.
We're going to get into that next week because I would love to do a rundown, finally, of the first phase of the Hack 5 challenge coin, the Hack Across America, if you will. So to everybody who received one of those on that trip, tune in next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I just want to also say thank you to everybody who celebrated our birthday with us and made it so special, especially Banshee of B-Sides Las Vegas, who basically made the pool party fun times at B-Side on August 5th like the most memorable, and I can't begin to express how just the gratitude that I have, not just her, but everybody on the team and everybody that came out and had cake and celebrated with champagne and said thank you for doing the show. And I can't believe it's been 10 years and people are coming up to us at DEF CON saying like, dude, I've been watching you since like high school and now I'm a pen tester.
Married, I have kids, and I'm a pen tester. It's like, oh wow, these people grew up with us.
So there we go.
So yes, thank you to everybody, and we also got some really cool interviews.
We do. I will also say that unfortunately we did not do as many as I had hoped. We will do some more via Skype in the coming weeks, and we're kind of redoing how. Hopefully we're going to redo how we do our presence at DEF CON in the future, so that we can build a studio there and actually like really do it well.
The new venue was kind of crazy.
New venue is crazy.
Trying to find a place to record.
And if you're familiar with any Hack 5 conference coverage, you're familiar with the fact that we go to the quietest area we can find where nobody can walk around in the background because we don't want to get any collateral damage. We really respect everybody's privacy. So as such, it's boring wall footage.
But that's okay because we also have some B-roll as well.
Yes.
So with that, I think we should go ahead and get into
We'll run right into it and we'll see you guys on the other side.
Hey guys, I'm Shannon Morse here at DEF CON 23, and I'm chatting with Mr. Jeremy Duro. Hey Jeremy, how are you doing?
Great, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I heard that you had a talk earlier today, and it went very well.
It did, yes. It was very intimidating, but it went off well. What can I say? It was my first talk, but I'm glad it's over. I'm glad it's over now.
I can understand. Yeah, the whole public speaking thing. It freaks me out. So it was all about man-in-the-middle attacks, USB rubber duckies, and corporate environments. Kind of awesome. There's some scripting involved. It sounds exciting. So I would like you to give me an introduction to what you talked about.
Yeah, sure. So I bought the rubber ducky, and I first looked at it and kind of where do I want to use this thing, and I bought it more as a teaching tool for some folks at my employment. And what I found was that most of the payloads that were already published out there would be stopped by most modern defenses that companies deploy. Antivirus, FTP, server.
Netcat listeners, stuff like that.
Yeah, so antivirus would pick that kind of stuff up. So what I wanted to do is kind of develop one that would work in a more secure corporate environment. And so that's what I kind of came with the idea of getting in the middle of a connection and then loading the certificate so I could decrypt their communications.
Okay, so how is the USB rubber ducky actually picked up by these different kinds of devices? Is it just because it's obviously not a HID?
No, so the antivirus is picking up things like some of the payloads try to pull down well-known files that have been published out there. So your Netcat, your Meterpreter, reverse shell tools, things like that. And they've been well-defined, so when you try to use them, it's not the ducky's fault, but obviously antivirus can pick that stuff up.
Yeah. In corporate environments, they need to be locked down. They can't be dealing with this kind of stuff, so they're obviously going to lock that down from the USB rubber ducky.
Absolutely, and it's not just antivirus. I mean, you're talking FTP, whitelisting, HTTP, proxy type stuff where you can't go out to open storage. Right, yeah. There's lots of tools that companies implement that stop a lot of the traditional payloads. Even another big one that I probably didn't talk on enough in the conversation at the DEF CON talk was admin rights. So a lot of the tools require admin rights, whereas my payload actually does not require admin rights.
That's awesome. Okay, so we figured out corporate environments, got to lock down with the antivirus. How do you get a workaround for this issue?
All right, so the way that I approached it was to think, there's plenty of payloads out there that get you in the middle of the conversation. Yeah. The hard part now is to decrypt that communication. So so the idea was that how can I take a certificate and get it on the machine if all I have at my disposal was a keyboard? And then kind of the brains there is that we're going to convert that certificate to human readable format so the keyboard can type it and write that to a file. And then we can load that certificate to the machine, which is then a trusted root store. And that's pretty dangerous. So, I mean, if you have the...
You end up collecting like all the authentication for the device that you're basically owning.
Yeah, once you have the trusted certificates loaded, there's really nothing you're not decrypting as far as a web traffic, because your proxy is signing everything with that trusted key. So yeah, you pretty much got everything. I mean, authentication cookies, any passwords, usernames, that kind of stuff, yeah.
So is this like a bash script that you wrote, or how did you write it?
Well, it's the code on the Rubber Ducky is actually the Ducky Script API that you guys have kind of put out there. Thanks again for that. And then what it does, it actually writes a little VBS script that will run a batch file. So yeah, that's how it works.
Okay, so I want to get a walkthrough so we can actually like show everybody how this works.
Absolutely, okay? Absolutely. So all right, so what's going to happen is first you're going to see the command prompt being opened up, and we try to do a UAC bypass, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Darren from Hack5 actually wrote that piece of script. So yeah, that's the first step. Once we get the command prompt open up, we're then going to map the Ducky drive. That was also a script that was pulled off of your guys' forums. And then kind of my part of the code is we're going to take the certificate that was pulled from a proxy, and we're going to use a cert util to load that in the trusted root store. And then we're going to overwrite the Firefox profiles, because Firefox has its own certain key store. So that we've got all the modern browsers, so that covers your Internet Explorer, it covers Chrome, and it covers Firefox. So, and then after it loads the certificates, it's then going to create a wireless profile and connect to that wireless profile. And that wireless profile will be my man-in-the-middle machine. Yeah.
Okay. So do you use Wi-Fi Pineapple for that, or how do you do the man-in-the-middle?
You could. A lot of the scripts are set up to use Pineapple. I chose to do it all in CaliBox just because it was a little easier to set up for the demo. But you absolutely could use the Pineapple.
That's so cool. And is there going to be a release of the code or anything like that? Are you going to show our other users?
Yeah, great question. And I probably should touch on this a bit more in the demo as well. But I'm going to put the code out on the Hack5 forums. And I'll try to do a write-up so everyone can kind of follow along and all the files that are needed to run it. And I appreciate any input, and people feel free to modify it as you wish.
We're gonna get the update that's like, I updated it, now it's 5 seconds faster. Yeah. Yes.
And I encourage that. Please make your modifications and make it even better.
Now, last question for you: do you have any recommendations for corporate environments on how they can protect themselves from this kind of attack?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went into this a little bit on the talk as well. It's only responsible that we kind of cover our bases when we release these kind of things. And what I would suggest is there's a couple tools. There's wireless intrusion prevention systems that would stop the AP part of the attack. You can actually lock down USB ports, whether it's just through USB mass storage, which would stop part of the attack, or you could actually just disable USB entirely. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's things you can do. I mean, encouraging users to be more responsible, picking up flash drives, that's a big step in the right direction. As well as I would encourage people to use multi-factor authentication, because even if I can deploy...
People aren't doing that? What's wrong with them?
Yeah, so some places don't offer it, but most of your bigger sites have some type of tie into multi-factor authentication. And even if I were to attack you, I can't use your credentials again if it's a one-time use password. So that's another big step in the right direction.
That's so awesome. I can't wait to see the code. I'm really interested in using my own Wi-Fi or my USB Rubber Ducky to actually do this. Where can people ask you questions, find more information about what you do, and more work on the USB Rubber Ducky or other products?
So you can always email me at jdorrough, so JDORROUGH3 @yahoo.com, or look me up on Twitter. I don't exactly remember my handle, but you can find me on Twitter as well to reach out to me.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy. That was awesome, and
so
I'm so glad your talk went well.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Domain.com and .club came to Hack5 with a great idea. Build a club all about learning stuff, making things, and having fun. And so we did just that, and man, what a brilliant idea. We recently hosted our very first ever open house at the Hack5 warehouse, and with the help of Domain.com and .club, we put on a mini LAN party, micro drone obstacle course, 3D print fest, quadcopter race, and killer barbecue. And I must say, these guys get it. The internet, and hacker culture in particular, it's all about fostering community. From BBSs to FidoNet to IRC, it's all about coming together and having fun, and what better domain to do it than a .club? It's perfect because a .club is universally and globally understood, not just here in the United States. So if you're building a new business or naming your startup, consider a .club as the ultimate social domain. Join us in the San Francisco Bay Area for workshops and projects and crazy indoor quadcopter races at our very own .club, hackhouse.club. Then head over to domain.com/club to register your .club today. They're only $9.99 a year, and there are thousands of awesome options still available. Make sure to use the coupon code HAK5 to save 15% and let the guys over at domain.com know we sent you. So, when you think domain names, think domain.com.
I'm here at DEF CON 23 with Chad, who is literally hacking the Gibson. Chad, dude.
Thanks.
For real, though, hacking the Gibson?
Well, I mean, that's a bit of a, that's maybe just a little too Hollywood to what we're doing here, actually. It's not all like, blinking green lights and screens that make a lot of noise and things like that. It's actually not much different, and that's why I'm here talking about it with my co-presenter, is it's not that much different than what you already do, right? So the people who are out there writing overflows or exploits or shell code for Linux or Windows and that kind of stuff, aside from being a different architecture and that sort of stuff, it is, the idea is if you know how to do it here, that's what we're here to say, like if you know how to do it here, you ought to be doing it here because it's important.
So that's the thing, is your talk is all about hacking mainframes, and you say the word mainframe to a lot of people, and like, okay, well, first of all, before you started hacking mainframes and getting actually really familiar with them, what were the imagery coming up in your head?
Yeah, so I've been working with and or around mainframes for about a decade or so. And prior to that, it was like, you think of the old systems programmers, guys are sitting around in like white shirts and skinny ties with like cigarette, ashtrays on their desks and like big rooms full of machines and that kind of stuff. It really hasn't been like that for decades. I mean, these are very modern, they're still kind of big, but they're cool looking. But they're very modern, very powerful operating systems. But they're completely proprietary. They're only made by one company, IBM, and you can't get one without going through them. So you can't go buy one at the local store or whatever. So they're sort of a novelty.
So explain to me, why does a company use a mainframe instead of just like, a rack full of 19-inch, blades and clusters and all that good stuff? Like, why not just regular commodity stuff?
I'd say there's probably a couple reasons, maybe three reasons. One, they're exceptionally reliable. So the people that rely on mainframes have zero downtime, configured correctly. They do an unbelievable amount of transaction volume. So like a typical mainframe run in somebody's credit card shop or ATM shop or airline shop might run, thousands and thousands of transactions every second. Flawlessly. The other thing I would say is how they fail. So when they fail, if applications fail or components fail, like they are unbelievably modular and resilient to any kind of failure, and had been for decades. It's a proven system for when you need, and it shows by what's running on it today. It's finances, it's airlines, it's utilities, government stuff. I mean, if it's important, it's running on a mainframe. Like anything you did between getting here from your house to here, I'm sure your information or something of yours crossed multiple mainframes on the way here. You just don't know about it.
Are you saying that that my name went through like a half a dozen mainframes and it's like 1984?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yes, they're watching you. They're all watching you.
That's okay. Well, that notwithstanding, that sounds really rad, and I guess I see the benefit now, but how do you go about hacking mainframes, and how does that differ from what we're traditionally used to?
Yeah, so the thing that, how do you go about hacking? So mainframe, it's a different architecture, so that's the thing. So like, for instance...
Are we talking MIPS, ARM?
Yeah, so that, exactly. So most people are hacking Intel processors. Some people are doing ARM if they're doing maybe microcontrollers. But it is a separate architecture unto itself. But it is similar in that it's a von Neumann architecture, meaning that you have data and instructions. It doesn't differ between those, right? So you can kind of commingle them. How does one go about doing it? That's kind of the big barrier to entry, is like you got to have access to one. You can't just, so the 2 points I make to people are, if you're working for a company that has one of these, then you can afford to pay somebody to be doing R&D on it, because you have it by virtue of having it, and you should be. That's like point number one. Second one is, if you're a pen testing company and you're big enough to have engagements at companies that have these things, you ought not be bypassing it. You should have somebody on your team that's researching this kind of stuff. You can buy, smaller ones or rent time on them or find a way to get them the information they need. IBM also has they actually have, and a lot of people don't know this, they have a virtualization product. So you can run a mainframe on a Linux box, because they make a hypervisor that emulates mainframe hardware, and you can run the actual operating system on this. And they license it and sell it to, well, you can imagine if you're writing system software for a mainframe, you need something to do it on. If you're crashing it all the time, you're not going to be rebooting it all the time. So it's what other companies that write software for the mainframe use. And they'll sell it and license it to anybody who wants it. And it's orders of magnitude less expensive than the actual hardware, but it's the same thing. So we're just saying, like, look, if you own one, or if you are doing engagements, it shouldn't be off limits. You really ought to be testing this for yourself and for your customers.
So it sounds like if these mainframes aren't tested a lot, if there's not a lot of pen test outfits that kind of specialize in this sort of thing, I guess the fear is, like, one, are these, one, accessible, and two, if they are, is this the sort of thing where there's been enough research on this, where do they have the sorts of preventions that you find on more modern stuff like data execution prevention and things of that nature?
So no, they don't have data execution prevention, but they do have their own types of protection. So they have memory protection, so they have like key protection on memories. Every instruction decides at a hardware level whether it can read this memory block, write it, both or neither. That doesn't exist on an Intel. It doesn't have something like ASLR or canaries, but it has other things like that. Configured well, it is a very, very secure system. But to your point, if they're not being poked at, how do you know? And a lot of them have grown up over, from the 60s. Like, just the other thing about it is we're really trying to push the people that work on these things. We're trying to kind of change the culture a little bit, because these people grew up and they treat it sort of like their pride. I mean, rightfully so. They treat it like their Ferrari, right? They're not bringing it home in a brand new Ferrari and like taking it apart, see how it works. They're gonna do what they do with it, what it does best, but they're gonna leave that to the mechanics that know what they're doing, right? And we're at a point now where we don't really think that you can afford to necessarily do that. You need to know, if you have a vested interest in it, you really need to know, is it configured correctly? Maybe it's not IBM software that's got a buffer overflow built into it, but there's loads of third-party software that runs on these things. They run Java, they run DB2, they run C, they run Unix, they run Linux. There's been a few exploits for those things, right? And what does that look like on a mainframe? What happens? What do you get if you get a shell? What happens next, right? Yeah, absolutely. Bash. You can run a Bash shell, right? You can have a web server. You can have you run Tomcat on there. We have 3 or 4 different versions of Tomcat running on a lot of mainframes.
But I don't hear too much about mainframes. Is it because they're not really accessible? I mean, can you find these things on the internet today?
So this is a perfect question. If my co-presenter Phil was here, he's really who got me into this. He runs a blog that is basically he scanned the internet. He's used like Shodan and some other folks to get this information out and pull the screen scrapes from mainframes that he's found on the internet. They're out there. That doesn't mean they're insecure, but they're out there. You don't hear about them because there are juicier targets, right? So if you think about what you hear about in the media, you hear a lot about people taking credit cards, because that's like now, that's like here. But these are the smash and grab jobs, whether they're done by a hacker in his mom's basement or a nation state. Like, they're just stealing, they're stealing money, right? They're robbing the bank. But if you think about like Stuxnet, right? That wasn't about robbing the bank, right? That was about affecting some very, very specific damage to a very specific enemy. If you turn that around and think like maybe we're the enemy of somebody else, right? They're not going to be stealing credit cards, right? They're going to infiltrate themselves to a point where they can take one of these things and like take it offline, or take it offline permanently, or just wedge their way in there. So I don't think you hear about it because there are way better, easier, juicier, more sensational targets for every day. And You've got Windows running facing the internet with IIS. You've got the next Android over. Like, these are things that like everybody can relate to, and they happen all the time, and they're new, and they're exciting.
But it does get the news when like complex systems that have to be up all of the time, say like, I don't know, United's check-in system gets hacked.
Yeah.
You know,
like Sabre recently, there was an article that just came out. The Sabre, which is like the airline ticketing system, may have had some hacks happen to them by China, and that's absolutely going to be a mainframe back ends on some of those things.
Maybe somebody who wasn't supposed to fly is now able to fly.
So one of the points is like, you and I can't just walk and like get a mainframe easily, but certainly countries that maybe aren't our best friends could and can and do. They've got the money, they have the resources, and there's nothing to stop them from doing this kind of research. So we're out here saying, hey, I think the deck is stacked in the wrong direction. Like, we need to get people that are way smarter than I am at this involved in this in a way, because there are entries into it, but it's not as easy as like, hey, I want to download Ubuntu and start, decompiling binaries, and I got it, it's all free, and I can do it in my basement, and it's like great. It takes a little more work than that, and you have to learn it. Like, there's a learning curve to have here, but hell, if you went from Intel to ARM or anything like that, you've been through this. You've been through this learning curve.
So to wrap up, I will say, like, as a hacker, how do I get one of these in my basement and start hacking on it? Because one, it sounds like a great challenge. Yep. Two, there could be, I don't know if they have IBM has bug bounty programs or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But three, I mean, it could really lead to like a lucrative field, especially if this is not currently being exploited as far as.
Amen.
Yeah.
So I would say for an individual researcher, it's gonna be tricky. You can buy this software, and I think they would probably sell it to anybody that they thought was, I can't say I don't work for IBM, but I'm guessing it's a product that they offer that they would probably sell it to anybody who's willing to pay list price for it, which is in the tens of thousands of dollars, I think. But it's not. But if you're a company, even a meager-sized company, that kind of a software license isn't unheard of at all, right? So there you are, right? Those are the people. You got to start somewhere, right? Maybe it's not going to be the individual researcher. We got to start somewhere. And then you mentioned something about. The things we hear, like the vulnerabilities, how do I get into it? That's the other thing. The vulnerability ethos in IBM in this platform is they only disclose their vulnerabilities to their known customers. They don't publish them publicly, and then they don't publish the exact details even to their known customers. They just give them a scale and a vector, but that's about it. And that's worked for them for a long time because they know everybody. They're a tight little family. I don't think that's necessarily, we disagree on this, like, me and IBM, we disagree on this. I'm very much in the open disclosure, bug bounty, that kind of stuff, I think we all benefit from that. They're not there yet. And I think part of that is maybe because their customers aren't there yet. But that's what we're out here trying to do, is like get people to, if you work for one of these big companies, you start pushing back, dollars talk, right? These companies have clout with IBM, start saying, hey, I think we'd like to see this with the rest of our risk platform where we get CVEs and we get these disclosed and that kind of stuff. And then start training people, start bringing them in, start creating a demand for it, right? Yeah.
That sounds rad. Well, thank you for hacking Big Blue. Where can people find out more about your research?
Yep, so you can go to my website, www.bigendiansmalls. It's a play on the fact that it is a big endian memory addressing. Or follow me on Twitter as I'm at Big Endian Smalls. Or my co-speaker, Phil Young, he is Soldier of Fortran. And if you just Google mainframe hacking or Soldier of Fortran, he is the only guy that come up how I got into it. Cool. Google it, you get him. So, yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for being on. Cheers. That just about wraps up this week's episode of Hack 5, but before we get going, I do want to mention that we have a very special thing happening here at the Hack 5 warehouse. HAKhouse.club is where you can sign up for our next open house.
Awesome.
Yeah, little barbecue, little LAN party, little quadcopter racing. We have, the death match. Not just LAN party death match, but quadcopter death match. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome.
Yes. So HAKhouse.club, it's August 29th. You have to sign up there to get invited.
What else are we doing? Should we tell them?
Oh, we're doing some campy stuff in September.
Oh, that's fun.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
We got next week doing the challenge coin.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Cool.
We've got another Pen Test with Hack 5 coming up, so pentestwithhack5.com.
Here?
Yep, here at the warehouse. Let's
Very
see,
cool.
What else? We're going to space.
Oh, that's perfect.
Obviously.
I'm booking myself on that trip.
There we go.
I have savings specifically for going to space.
Right. I can't.
I really do.
There's a lot of stuff.
I can't afford it. but I really have a savings account for going to space.
Yes, let us know what you think about that in the comments below, or just send over an email to feedback@hack5.org. We read them all. Sorry, we can't reply to every single email, but they all get read.
And then shop at Hack5, or I mean, hackshop.com.
Yes, hackshop.com. That's where you can find all the awesome stuff that supports this show, and it's because of you guys voting with your dollar and saying, yes, I like this, and wow, land turtles are fun.
Land turtles are fun. We should do some tutorials on land turtles.
I just did 7 videos up on there, and I should do some more as well.
Sweet.
So OpenVPN coming up next, and all sorts of other good stuff. So land turtles, pineapples, duckies, all the good stuff, HackRFs, you know, Ubertooths, all the fun things to do the hacksaws, hackshop.com. Appreciate your support there. That, I think, pretty much wraps it up.
I think it does.
Yes, so I'm at HAK5 Darren on Twitter.
And I'm at Snubs, aka Shannon Morse.
Snurbs. And with that, we're reminding you once again
to trust your technolust.
I'll see you next week.
I win. First.
What?
Oh, I made the first comment. First. I'm
in the 301 club.
No, you're not.